Hey guys, Nintendrew here, back again with a brand new DIY project. Today I've got some custom-made, fully functional 3D printed Amiibo figures that I've designed and assembled at home. So in this video I'll be showing off the 3 custom Amiibo that I've made, and I'll talk a little bit about the process of building them from scratch. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so the 3 custom Amiibo I'll be showing today are all sort of tied to Super Mario Odyssey. Because it's one of the Switch's best games with only 3 official Amiibo figures, I thought that would be a great place to start with making my own. So first up is this guy, a Super Mario cereal Amiibo. This might seem a little bit silly, but here's why I chose to make it. When I was able to finally find a box of the Super Mario cereal, which, if you're unaware, does function as an Amiibo, I wanted to have a more permanent collectible than just a flimsy cardboard box. So I decided to design this bowl of cereal with a spoon and a base and put it all together. This one is actually what got me excited about making custom Amiibo in the first place. As I mentioned, all 3 figures I'll be showing today do function as Amiibo, they're not just little statues, and as you can see here, when this one is scanned, Uncle Amiibo detects it as the Super Mario cereal, calling it a delicious Amiibo. Speaking of Uncle Amiibo, I felt like he was one of the most overlooked new characters in Odyssey, so I thought I'd make an Uncle Amiibo Amiibo. The antenna was particularly challenging because, of course, it can't be as thin as it actually is in-game, it would just snap off, so I modeled this one after the antenna on Olimar's helmet. This Amiibo actually scans as Rob because I felt like that was an appropriate pairing. And finally, the last Amiibo is based on a certain costume in Super Mario Odyssey, so fair warning, there are spoilers ahead. If you've beaten the game, you've probably found the classic Mario 64 costume, which mimics the model of Mario from Super Mario 64, and I absolutely loved this little bit of fan service. Especially after the suggestions you guys gave on Twitter, I thought it would be fun to make a Super Mario 64-styled Mario Amiibo. Thanks to the sketchy animator and Peyton McCreary for this suggestion, and just as an aside for everyone, make sure to check the description for links to my social media if you'd like to be included in a future video like this one. This one was definitely the hardest to paint. All 3 of these Amiibo are painted by hand, and Mario just has so many tiny details and features that if any of them are a little bit off, the whole thing will look wrong, so overall it's a little rough around the edges, but I think it's at least recognizable, and it's a fun little knick-knack. This one scans as the 8-bit Mario Amiibo with modern colors because I felt like that was the closest existing Amiibo that we have, at least until Nintendo makes their own Mario 64-styled Mario Amiibo. Please, Nintendo, get on it. So I talked a little bit about the modeling process and painting these figures, but now I'll go a bit more in depth and explain how I made each of these custom Amiibo from start to finish. So the first step is modeling. In my case, I used the web-based program Tinkercad. Aside from the Mario 64 Amiibo, which was based on his actual in-game model, I put these other models together from scratch. After getting the basic shapes down, I also cut the models into pieces which were easier to print without heavy overhangs or the need for plastic supports. Later on, I glued the individual pieces together, which I will talk about here shortly. So after designing and slicing the models, they were ready for printing. The 3D printer I use is called the ANET A8, and it costs a little under $200. As always, I'll leave a link in the description below. Of course, pretty much any 3D printer should work, so if you have free access to a printer at school or at work, go for it. I think the cereal bowl ended up taking the longest time to print. It was something like 4 hours of print time. But if you're familiar with 3D printing, that's relatively quick. Not too bad. For each Amiibo, I printed off the model and the base, and for these 2, I also printed off some small riser pieces just to lift them up a little bit. After the pieces were done printing, I assembled them with some super glue and took some sandpaper to them just to make sure everything was smooth and ready for painting. Next, for each Amiibo, I prepared an NFC tag to hold the Amiibo's data. Each custom Amiibo base is made of 2 halves, with just enough space between them to hold an NFC tag. The Super Mario cereal box is perfect for this project because in this case all you have to do is open up the box, remove the NFC sticker, and put it between the 2 halves of the base. For the other 2, you have a couple different options. You can, of course, take an already finished base from an official Amiibo figure and put your figure in its place, but that does mean you'd have to disassemble the original. Alternatively, you can opt to buy some generic NFC stickers and clone your Amiibo's data to the blank tag, which can then be used in the custom base. I won't go into too many details here because technically this same technique can be used for piracy, which I do not endorse. So if you're interested in this method, I would encourage you to just do a little research on the topic. The information's out there, I just don't want to directly enable piracy. So after the base is put together, all the pieces are ready for painting. I just used some miniature paint. This is paint that you might use for Warhammer figures or for other small pieces like that, but any sort of paint should work. I recommend you get an assortment of acrylic colors and a variety of small brushes. Once the figure is painted, it's ready to be glued to the base, and you can do this again with just some regular super glue. And finally, the last step is to seal the paint job so that nothing gets faded or smudged or chipped or anything like that. So you'll want to pick up some sort of acrylic sealant. I chose to buy this can of matte acrylic finish. Of course, you can go for a glossy finish if you prefer that more shiny appearance, but I thought that the matte finish would look the best for these three. So after you've given it a few light coats on all sides, make sure to let it fully dry in a well-ventilated area, and you've got yourself a finished product. Okay guys, that's about it for this one. Of course, I will leave links in the description to all of the models that I made for this project in case you'd like to try it at home. I really had a great time putting together these custom 3D printed Amiibo, and I hope you enjoyed learning how to make them for yourself. If you did, please consider subscribing to Nintendrew for all sorts of cool gaming content, and make sure to share the video with any friends who might find it interesting. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye! Hey guys, thanks again for checking out the video and for making it all the way to the end. Hope you enjoyed. As always, I've got links to all my social media in the description below, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, that sort of thing. And if you'd like to help out even more, I've got a link to my Patreon on the right side of your screen. Otherwise, I hope you'll look out for the next video. Take care.